What's going on, guys? So I got a pretty cool project for you today. We're going to build an admin dashboard area using Next.js, TypeScript, and shadcn-ui, and some other smaller packages like Recharts and Lucide React for icons. But the main focus is going to be shadcn-ui, which isn't really a traditional component library. It's a collection of reusable components that you can either copy and paste from the documentation into your project, or you can use the CLI, which is what we're going to be doing. Now, before we do anything, I just want to show you a really quick demo of what we'll be building. So we have our main dashboard homepage area here, the navbar at the top. I just called it Traversy Press. And then we're going to be building a theme switcher. So here you can choose from light or dark or whatever your system uses, which in my case is dark. And then we have a little avatar component with a drop down. We're not going to be doing the profile page. The main pages we're going to do are the dashboard home, the posts, the edit post page, as well as a login. So if I click log out, it'll actually redirect me to /auth where we have the tabs component from shadcn-ui. So I think this looks really cool where you can just toggle login and register. Now for forms, we're going to be using React hook form and Zod for validation, which integrate really well with shadcn. So you'll see if I try to submit this, we do have some validation. We'll create a form schema and set up our rules. And then if I do click sign in, there's no authentication, but it does redirect me to the home page. Now on the home page, we have some cards that we'll create with just some resources and count and some icons from Lucide React. This chart is from Recharts, which is obviously a chart library, and this just represents the website views. Now the views and the posts, the data is going to come from TypeScript files. It's just going to be stored in an array. If you want to, take this further and use an ORM in a database, you can do that. If you want to create some kind of back-end API, you can do that, but this is a front-end video, so we're just creating the interface. And then down at the bottom, we have the latest posts. So we just have a table with the latest 5 posts. On the side here, this is a component called command, and it's pretty cool because you can have your links, but you can also filter through them as well. So if you have a bunch of stuff here, you can filter through. And then if we go to the post page, again, we have the table with all the posts. We have a pagination component. If I click edit, that takes us to the edit page. And again, we're using Zod, so we'll create a form schema and we'll add some validation. Now we don't have any kind of back end to submit to, but if you do submit this, you'll see this little toast component, so we'll set that up as well. And then as far as the design goes, we're going to be using a lot of Tailwind classes because shadcn-ui is actually built on top of Tailwind, so you can use Tailwind classes. And we will make it somewhat responsive. So you'll see if I go to mobile view, all the cards stack, even the chart, it's a little squish, but it does fit in there. We took away some of the columns on smaller screens. So we'll be doing a lot of Tailwind stuff as well. All right, so that's the plan. Let's go ahead, get a coffee, get a tea, whatever, and let's get to work. Today's video is sponsored by Mailtrap, an email delivery platform that developers love. What's cool about Mailtrap is its actionable analytics. They're the best in the industry, with full statistics and drill-down reports on each and every email you send. They also offer separate streams for transactional and bulk emails, SMTP, as well as API integrations. Mailtrap also includes SDKs for many of the major programming languages. At Mailtrap, actual human support is available around the clock for all customers, and you can try it today by visiting mailtrap.io. All right, so we're going to get started on our project, and this is something that I would definitely encourage you to follow along with and not just watch because, obviously typing everything out is going to help you learn more than just watching. So shadcn-ui, I would say, is the main technology of this tutorial. I'm assuming that you know the basics of Next.js and React, and we are using TypeScript, but we're not using it a ton, basically just using it for props. So if you don't know TypeScript, that's fine. And then we're using some other things like Recharts for the analytics chart and the dashboard. We'll be using Lucide React for icons and just some small packages as well. Now, shadcn-ui is, I hesitate to call it a component library because it's really just a collection of reusable components. And shadcn is built on top of two things, Radix UI or Radix UI, and that is a very low-level, unstyled component library. And then it's also built on Tailwind, so you can actually use Tailwind classes with it and style these however you want. And there's two ways to use components. You can copy and paste them into your components folder. So basically just come to the website here, go to components. You can see all of them on the left here. So for instance, we got a draw component, and they're really good looking right off the bat, but of course you can style them however you want. You know, pagination, whatever, and you can see the code here. So you can either copy and paste them, or you can use the CLI, which is what we're going to do and what I would recommend. So an example would be if you wanted to use this pagination, you could run npx shadcn-ui at latest add pagination. So just replace this with any of these components that you want to use. And what that'll do is it'll create a file in components/ui/pagination.tsx or JSX, whatever you're using. And then you can just bring that into, you know, any file you want, any page or other component you want to use it in. And to use the CLI, you do have to initialize it. So if you go to docs and then installation, and you can use it with any of these frameworks, Next, Vite, Remix, anything that uses React. And then to initialize it, we just run npx shadcn-ui at latest and then init. And that'll create a components.json file, which is basically our shadcn config file. All right, so as the documentation says, we're going to just create a new Next app first. So let's jump into the terminal, and I'm going to run npx create-next-app at latest. And I'm going to call this Traversy Press-UI because it's like a simple version of the WordPress admin. And then just do --Tailwind because we want to create our Tailwind config and get that set up. Now, would you like to use TypeScript? I'm going to say yes. And even if you aren't familiar with TypeScript, that's fine. We're not doing too much with it. Just use it for like props and stuff. ESLint, I'm going to say no. Source directory, no. App router, yes. Would you like to customize the default alias? No. And then it's going to get set up and install all of our dependencies. Okay, so now I'm going to cd into that directory, and I'm just going to run code dot and open up VS Code. Of course, if you want to use a different text editor, you can. So I'll just bring this over here. And then from now on, I'm just going to use the integrated terminal. So I'm going to open that up. And let's run the server. So we'll run npm run dev. Okay, so we'll get that going on localhost 3000. Should just see just the default landing page. All right, and then I'm also going to open a new console so that we can install packages and we can set up components with the CLI. And then let's just do some basic cleanup. So in the app folder, I'm going to go to layout and just change the title here. So I'll change it to Traversy Press. And then for the description, just say admin dashboard. Okay, and then in the home page, which is the page.tsx file, we don't need the image import. And again, I'm not going to go over the basics of Next.js, like the app folder structure and routes and stuff like that. You can check out my Next.js crash course if you want to learn the basics. And I also have a premium course. I think it's like 13 or 14 hours, and that's on my website and on Udemy, and I'll have the links for those in the description. Now for the return, I'm just going to get rid of all this crap, and we're going to just return, let's just do a fragment, and in that we'll do an h1, and we can use Tailwind classes. So for instance, we can do text-2xl, and let's just say dashboard. All right, now we want to initialize shadcn. So down in the terminal, I'm going to run npx shadcn-ui at latest, and then init. All right, so that's going to initialize. That's going to create a, well, actually, we have to select. So this is like the style. I'm going to select default, and then you can choose, let me make this a little bigger. You can choose a default color. So I'm just going to go with slate. And then there's also CSS variables. I'm going to say yes for those. And we can use, there's going to be classes we can use like BG primary, but we can also use the regular Tailwind classes as well, as you can see I just did right here. Now running that command created this component.json file, and this is used to configure shadcn. It has like the location of your Tailwind config, it has the if you're using TypeScript or not, it has your location of your CSS file, so just the basic configurations. There's nothing in here that we have to do or add. And then it also created this lib folder with this utils, and there's just a function in here called cn, which allows you to conditionally apply classes to your components, and I'll show you how we can use that later. All right, so we have it initialized. Now, before we start to work on our project and the UI, I just want to show you the process of bringing in a component and using it. So let's do the button component, since that's something that's very simple and it's something we'll be using later. So in the terminal here, I'm going to run npx shadcn-ui at latest, and then add, and then whatever the component I want, in this case button. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a file inside components, and then inside the UI folder called button. So if we wanted to customize this in any way, we could do that. Like let's say we wanted to add another variant, because you have these different variants: destructive, outline, secondary, ghost, different sizes. So you can add to this very easily. Now to use it, let's go into we'll just do this in our page. I'm not going to keep this code, so it really doesn't matter. But we can then import button from components, UI button, and let's say I want to use it right here. So button, and we'll just say click me. All right, so there we go. We have a button. It has the hover state and all the normal things a button would have, and we can pass in props. So again, if we go to the code here, we have a prop of variant, and we can use these different values. We have sizes we can pass in. So let's add a variant of, let's say, destructive. So that will make it red. Okay, if I do a size, so for size, let's say large. So that will make it a little larger. Now you can also add Tailwind classes. So if I say class name, and set that to, I don't know, let's just do, we'll do a text color. So text blue 400, and now it has blue text. So very, very customizable. So that's going to be our workflow, is to just install the components we need, bring them in, and use them. So we can get rid of all this stuff. We don't need that. And the first thing I want to do as far as our layout is the navbar. Now let me just bring up an image. Just want to open an image so we can see, what we're working on. All right, so we're going to start top to bottom. So basically we'll have this navbar, and it'll just have a simple logo, and I'll have the repository in the description so you can get like the images and stuff like that. But we'll have the logo on the left, and then on the right we're going to have this avatar, which is a component, and it'll have a drop down. So when we click it, it'll have some drop down links, including logout, profile, and then this is going to be the theme toggler, but we're not going to do that until later. So right now I just want to get the navbar with the logo, then we'll add the avatar and the drop down. All right, so let's create in components a file called navbar, and we're going to do tsx because we're using TypeScript. Now, as far as creating React components, I've actually been using a new extension. So I've always used the ES7 React Redux GraphQL snippets, but there's a much simpler extension that I've been using called Simple React Snippets. Okay, so I basically just use it to create a component with SFC. So if we go down here, you can see a stateless function component, arrow function. So that's really what I've been using to generate components. So I'll say SFC enter, and then give it a name. So navbar, hit tab, tab again, which will put me in the return, and we'll have a div, and let's just say navbar. All right. So I'm going to bring this into my layout because obviously we want the navbar to be on every page. So let's go to our layout.tsx and let's bring this in. So import navbar, and then let's put it down here. So in the body, say navbar. All right, so now you should see the navbar text. Now I'm going to add some classes to the navbar div right here. So let's say class name, and I'm going to use BG primary because remember we have access to these variables now. And then when we have dark mode, I actually want it to be a different background. So what we can do is just prefix with dark and then colon. Let's close that up. And then I'm going to use BG-slate-700 because I figured just put all the classes we need now so we don't have to come back later after we add the dark and light toggle. So let's do padding on the y-axis, so -2, padding on the x, 5, and make this a flex box, and then justify, let's do justify between, because basically we want the logo on one side and we want the avatar on the other. And then let's also add a text white class as well. So after the background, we'll say text white, save that, and now we should see the dark background. So as far as the logo goes, you can bring that in from the final repo. The link's in the description. Or, of course, feel free to use your own logo. But what I'm going to do is in the root, I'm going to create a folder called img. And then I'm going to bring the logo over. So it's just my white Travesty Media logo, or gray. And then we're going to bring a couple things in here. So I'm going to import image from next image. And I want a link around it. So I'm going to import link from next link. And of course we need the logo itself, so let's import logo from, and that's going to be up one level in the image folder, and then logo PNG. Okay, and then we'll go right into the navbar. We can get rid of this text, and let's do link, and the href is just going to be slash, and then inside that we'll have our image, uppercase I, image, and the source is actually going to be set to the logo that we brought in, and we'll just do alt, we'll call this Travesty Press, and then I'm going to add a width of 40. Alright, so now we have the logo. So now I want to have the avatar on this side, and if we go back, let's go back to the shadcn website. And let's see, there's an avatar component. So this is what we want. And you can check the code out if you want. This is how we would use it. We're going to install it with the CLI though. So we just need to run this command right here. So let's go back to the terminal and let's run that. And what that'll do is it'll create a file in the UI folder called avatar.tsx. And if you want to take a look at that, you can. And again, you can customize it, but this exports avatar, avatar image, and avatar fallback. The fallback will be like a circle with the text of whatever text you put in it. So your initials or whatever it might be. So now in the navbar, let's bring in all that stuff from the avatar. So we want avatar, and we should have an option here, no? So this is going to be from @/component/UI/avatar. And there's a couple things we want to bring in. We also want to bring in, like I showed you, the avatar image and the avatar fallback. All right, so now let's go down here, and this div is a flex box, so whatever we put here is going to be on, it's going to be on to the right of the image. So we want to do avatar, and in that we're going to have the avatar image. Okay, and we're going to pass in here the source. Now for the image, I'm just going to use the shadcn PNG, the same that's in the docs. So that's going to be https and github.com /shadcn.png. I believe that's it. And then for the alt, we'll just say @shadcn. Okay, so there's the image. Now Why is it not on the side? We have display flex, justify between. Oh, I put it inside the link. What an idiot. So we don't want to do that. We want to put that after the link. Okay, so now it's over on the side. Now I also want to add the fallback. So here we're going to add avatar fallback. And basically, like I said, this is just going to be the whatever text if the image isn't there. So for instance, if I put a 1 here and that image doesn't exist, now it just says BT. And we can add like a class name to make that text, let's say text-black, like that, because you can add, Tailwind classes directly to components, which is cool. But let's go ahead and fix that. Now we have our image. So the next thing I want to do is add a drop down to it, because I want to have a link, like a logout link, a profile link, and we're going to have links that go nowhere just because this isn't going to be a full dashboard. The idea of this project is to get you familiar with shadcn so you can build your own stuff. All right, but the logout will actually go to a login page later. So let's install the dropdown. So down here, let's run npx. Actually, I'll just hit the up key, and then we're going to install dropdown dash menu. That's the name of the component. And that will create right here, you can see drop-down menu. So all your components will be, nice and neat in this UI folder. Now, instead of typing this all out, I'm going to go to the documentation here for drop-down menu and go down to where it says usage. And basically, we just want to do this, really, except for where it says open, we want our avatar. So let's copy the imports first. We just click that. And then let's add that right here. So we're bringing in these drop-down imports. And then I'm going to copy this whole thing. And let's put this, I'm going to go right below where the avatar is. Paste that in. What's this? Children's string has no properties in common with, well, all right, so this is just a TypeScript error. I'm not sure why I'm getting that, so we can just ignore that. It's not going to affect anything. And then let's take the avatar, so this block of code here, and we're going to go in the trigger where it says open and paste that in. And then we'll save that. And now if I click that avatar, you can see we have the drop down with the links. Now it has this outline, which I don't like, so I believe on the trigger we can just add a class name, and let's say on focus we want to set outline none. Yeah, so now that outline's gone. Now as far as the links go, all I want to have is I want to have a profile and log out. So let's see, we'll keep the my account, the label, but then for the items, let's get rid of team and subscription. And let's see, for profile, let's do link, uppercase L, link, href, and we'll have this go to slash profile, but that's not something we're actually going to create in this video, but we'll just add the link. If you want to add it, of course you can. And then for this one, let's do link href, and this is going to be set to slash, not login, it's going to be auth, because we're going to create a page called auth and then have a tab thing where we can click on register or create account. So let's say to auth and logout. So when we hit the logout link, it should take us to that page, which obviously right now doesn't exist. All right, cool. So that's our navbar for the moment. Later on, we're going to add the toggler for the theme, but I think that that's good for now. So the next thing I want to add is the sidebar. So if we look at the image again, we have this sidebar right here. And this whole thing here is actually a single component called command, which is really cool because it has links, right? You can have your links with some icons. We're going to use Lucide React for that. And then you can also search here and it will filter the links. So it's a really cool looking component. But let's create just the sidebar file and stuff first and import that into our layout. So in components, let's create a new file called sidebar.tsx. And then I'm going to do SFC, call it sidebar. And for now, we'll just have a div, and we'll just say sidebar. And then let's bring that into the layout file. I'll just copy that down. Sidebar and sidebar. And then let's come down here. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, under the navbar, I'm going to create a div with the class of flex. And then inside that, we're going to have two divs. And the children prop is going to go in the second one. Okay, and the first one is where the sidebar is going to go. So we can put that in here. And then I just want to add some classes to both of these. So this one is just going to be height, because I want it to stretch all the way down. So we'll do h dash, and then in brackets, 100 viewport heights. And then for this one that wraps around the children, let's do a class of padding 5. We're going to do width dash full. And then on medium screens and up, I'm going to do a max width, what is it, max W dash, and then I'm going to do a fixed pixels here, 1140 pixels. Okay, so let's save that. But I actually don't want to show the sidebar on really small screens, so let's go to this div right here that's around the sidebar, and let's say hidden, but on medium screens, display as block. Okay, so now it's not showing, and then if I hit this breakpoint, then it's going to show. All right, now for the command component, we're going to set that up, but I also want to use some icons, and we're going to use the package Lucide React. So let's install that. So npm install, and it's Lucide, so LUCIDE-React. And then let's set up the command component. Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at it. So let's see, command. Yeah, so it's really cool because you can just like filter down your links here. So we want to run this command, and yeah, we want to bring all this stuff in. So we can just copy and paste this again, but let's go ahead and install it first. So I'm going to just paste in that add command. That will add it to our UI folder right there. All right, and then let's copy, let's see, we'll grab all the imports first, and let's put those in the sidebar. Okay, so up at the top, we're going to paste that in. We're also going to import link. And then I want a bunch of icons from Lucide React. So I'm going to put that here. Let's import. And it's going to be from Lucide React. And the icons that I want are going to be layout dashboard and newspaper, folders, credit card, what else? Settings, and user. Okay, so those are the icons that I want to use. Now for the command components, let's go back to the documentation here, and I'm just going to copy this, and then let's go into here, and we can just replace this div with that. So I'll go ahead and save, and let's check it out. All right, now I want it to be a little wider than that. So in the layout, let's add right here, we'll say width dash, and then I'm just going to make it 300 pixels. Okay, so now it's a little wide. We'll make it a little bit wider. Let's do, I think that's all right. Let's take a look here. Well, maybe 300 is closer to what I have. Yeah, now, and I also want to give it a different color. I want to use the secondary color, which is like a lighter slate. So why don't we go into the sidebar, and then we can add it right onto the command component here, we can add a class name, and I think it has rounded corners by default. Well, you can't see because it's white, but let's add a color of BG, and we're going to use secondary. Yeah, so see how the top is a little bit rounded, so I'm also going to add a class of rounded-none to make it like fit in there nice and, yeah, nice and neat. All right, cool. Now these aren't links, they're just text, so we do want these to be links, and we're going to change them up a little bit, and we should be able to filter the text there, or the links as well. So for the first one, let's make it the dashboard link. So the first command item, right? Yeah, the first command item, I'm going to replace this calendar text, and I want to put the layout dashboard icon, and I'm going to give that a class name of margin right -2, height 4, and width 4. Okay, so that'll be the icon, and then under it, let's do link href, and we'll have that just go to slash, and we'll say dashboard. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, dashboard, I click that, it's just going to bring us to where we are now. And then let's copy these two lines. I'm going to go to the next where it says search emoji, get rid of that, and let's change this to posts and have it go to /post, and that actually will be a working page. And let's change the icon from layout dashboard to newspaper. So now we have our post link. Okay, good. And then underneath that we'll have the categories link. So we'll paste that in, change this to categories, and then I'm just going to have this go nowhere for now, so we'll just put a number sign, and let's change the icon, so that's going to be folders. So now we get categories, and then for these here, these aren't going to be actual links, so we don't have to make them links, but I do want to add the icon on the left and then add the shortcut on the right, because there's actually an import of, where is it, command shortcut. So that's what that's for. So let's go into this one here, into this command item where it says profile, and we're going to add the icon, which is going to be the user icon, and let's give it a class name of mr-2, h-4, and w-4. And then we're going to have a span with profile, and then we're going to use the command shortcut component, and let's see, I'm just going to grab that. It's going to be the command symbol and then P, like that, and let's take a look. Yeah, so that looks good. And then I'll grab these three. Let's go to billing, replace that, and the icon we're going to use here is credit card, and then billing for the text, and let's do command B for the shortcut. And then for settings, let's do the settings icon. Okay, and then the text, settings, and then the shortcut will be command S. All right, so yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So next we're going to create our dashboard card. So if we look at the image here, it's going to be these 4 cards, and they're going to be dynamic. We're going to pass in the title, the icon, as well as the count. All right, so let's create a new component, and I'm going to put this in the components folder. I'm going to create a folder called dashboard. So any UI components that are specifically for the dashboard will go in here. So let's call this dashboard card.tsx, and we're going to be using the card component from shadcn, so let's add that. We'll go down to our terminal, and let's say shadcn-ui at latest add, and then card. Okay, and then we'll start to bring what we need in. So actually, let's create a component first. I'm going to say sfc dashboard card, and let's have we're going to wrap this in a div for now, and I'll just say card because I just want to import it into the page. Now this is going to go into the home page which is going to be in app and then page.tsx. And at the top, we're going to import dashboard card from our component for our dashboard/dashboard card. Okay, we're bringing the shadcn card into this component, but we're bringing this component into our main file here. Now, we're not going to need this h1, so we can get rid of that. And then I'm going to have some flex classes here. So let's do flex, and I want it to stack on small screens. Okay, I want to have 4 across on large screens, 1 column on small screens. So we're going to initially set it to a flex column, but I'll add in on medium screens, make it a flex row. Okay, I'll do that in a second. Let's go ahead and justify let's justify between, and then we'll give it a little bit of space with gap -5, and let's do margin bottom 5 as well. All right, so right after flex call, I'm going to say on medium screens, I want it to be a flex row because I want them to be, 4 across. And then inside here, we'll have our dashboard card, which right now doesn't take any props, but it will, and we just see card. So now let's go into that file, dashboardcard.tsx, and let's import. So we want to bring in card, and that's going to be from @/components/UI/card. And we also want to bring in card content. You can also have like a card header, footer, and so on, but this is all we need for this particular thing. And then we're going to be using some icons, and right now I'm just going to make everything hard-coded, like the title, like posts, the count of the posts. I'm going to hard-code it all right now, but then we'll make it props after that. So let's import the newspaper icon from Lucide React, and then down in the return here, let's replace the div with the card component, and then this is going to have some classes on it. So I want to do bg slate 100, but then on dark, so when the theme is dark, when we add that switcher later, it's going to be bg-slate-800. And then let's do padding 4, and then padding bottom 0. And then inside the card, we're going to have, get rid of that text, and then we're going to have the card content. And inside the card content, we'll have an H3, and in the H3 will be the title, but I'm just going to hard code it to post for now. And this H3 is also going to have some classes. So let's do text dash, we'll do 3XL. Let's do text center, margin bottom 4, font bold, and let's say text dash slate 500. And then on dark, I want to do text slate 200. All right, so we'll save that for now, and that's what it looks like at the moment. And then let's see, underneath the H3, we're going to have a div that wraps the icon and the count. So this div, actually, let's just do that, and then add our class name, and we're going to make it a flex box. We'll give it gap 5, and I want to center everything. So let's say justify dash center and items dash center. And then inside that, we're going to have our icon, and we're going to use the newspaper. Later on, in a few minutes, we're going to make it so we can pass in the icon as a prop, but right now we're just hard coding it. Now I want to change the size, because you'll see if I save it, it's very small. I also want to make it slate color as well, so let's add a class name to this, and let's do text dash slate dash 500, and then we can also add in a size prop. So the size, I'm going to set that to 72. And there we go. Now we also need the count, so let's go back in here, and I'm going to go under the icon, and we're going to have another H3. Let's do text dash 5XL for this, and the font is going to be semi-bold. And then let's do text slate, and we'll do 500. Now on dark screens, I want to do a different text slate. So let's say text slate 200 on dark. and in that H3 is going to be the count. For now, I'm just going to hard code 200. Let's see what's going on with this. Oh, I had a space. All right, so let's save that. Let's take a look. All right, cool. So now we want to be able to pass this dynamic stuff in, because we're going to have posts, categories, users. We want to display those numbers. So we're going to add some props. And we're going to be using a little bit of TypeScript here. We're going to create an interface, and we'll call this dashboard card props. And we're going to have a title. So the title is going to be a string. We're going to have the count, which is going to be a number. And then the icon. Now the icon is going to be a Lucide icon React element. So what I'm going to do here is import. We're going to import Lucide icon from Lucide React. And then for the type for the icon will be React dot and then React element. And then in brackets here, we want to add that Lucide icon. All right, then we can go into the parentheses here, and as props, we want to pass in curly braces with the title, the count, and the icon. And right after the closing curly brace, we want to set it to the dashboard card props type or interface. All right, and then we want to take the props, like the title, we're going to replace posts with title. We're going to replace this whole newspaper. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this because we want to pass it in like this. So I'm going to actually cut it, and that's where we're going to display icon, and then here we're going to display the count. All right, so now what we can do is go into our home page, and the dashboard card is now going to take in a few things. It's going to take in a title. This one is going to be posts. It's going to take in count, and we can pass in whatever here. We'll just say 100, and then it's going to take in icon, and that's where I want to paste in what I cut, which is the newspaper. Now we have to bring in that icon into this file. Okay, we don't need it here anymore, so we can actually take it from here, cut it, and then we can go to the home page, and we can import it here. All right, so let's save that. Let's take a look, and there we go. It's the same thing, but now we can create all of our other dashboard icons with dynamic data. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just copy this down. We want 4 of them total. The second one is going to be for categories. So we'll say categories, and then we'll do 12 categories. The icon is going to be different too. We want that to be folder. Okay, we can auto import it. So you can see I hit enter and it brought it in. And then let's see, the next one is going to be users. And this will set to 750. And then the icon is going to be user. And I'll hit enter to auto import it. And then the last one is going to be comments. And for comments, we'll do 1200. And for the icon, we'll do message circle. So message, I think that's it, message circle. Yeah. And that got auto imported as well. So now if we take a look, now we have our dashboard cards. And if we make it a certain size, once we hit that breakpoint, then they go to being stacked. Now the next thing I want to do is the latest post table. So if we look at the image, let me pull that up. So right here we have the latest post, and this table is also going to go in the post page, but it's going to show all of them. We're just going to narrow it down to 5 here. And this is going to be a data table. That's a specific component from shadcn-ui. But as for the data, I'm not going to just hard code the text. We're going to have it come from a JavaScript file. We're going to have an array, and we're going to import that data. So let's create the data first before we do anything else. And I'm just going to close all this stuff up. And let's just collapse all this. And what I'm going to do is create a folder in the root called data. And I'm also going to create a folder in the root called types, because our data, which is going to be posts in this case, and then when we go to the analytics, we'll also have some data there. So we'll have an analytics data and analytics types as well. But let's start with the types. So we'll create a new file here, and let's call this post.ts. And basically we just want to create our interface for the data that we want. We're going to export it too, because we're going to be bringing it into the actual data file. So we'll say interface post, and then what is a post going to have? It's going to have an ID, which is going to be a string. It's going to have a title, which is going to be a string. It's going to have a body, string, and obviously if you weren't using TypeScript, you don't have to do this, but it is good to have it. Just, I mean, you can be less prone to errors, and there are advantages to using TypeScript, but that's a whole new video. That's a whole different video. That's going to be a string, title, body, author, and then date, which will also make a string. And then we're also going to have comments, which is going to be an array. So I'm also going to create an interface for that called post comment, and that will be an array. Oops. Okay, now that post comment we're going to just put right down here. So we'll say export interface and post comment, and that's just going to have ID, string, text, string, and we'll say username string. All right, so those are our types. Now we can close that up. Let's go into data, and let's create a file called posts.ts here. And in this file we want to bring in the types that we just created, so we can import, and we want to bring in post, and that's going to be from @/types/posts. All right, and then let's create our array. So we'll say const posts, which will be have a type of post or post, but will be an array, and then set that to the array with the data. Now for the objects, I'm actually going to paste these in because it'll be way too much to type out. And you can just get these from the final repo. So I'll paste these in, and let's just take a look at what's included here. We'll go to the first one. So ID is a string of 1. We have a title, a body, author, date, and then a comments array. And in the comments, we have an ID, text, username. All right, so obviously this, our types match. If I were to call this like name, then we're going to get an error because that doesn't match our post interface. All right, now we want to make sure that we export this at the bottom. So let's export as default post, or sorry, posts. And now we can use this data. So we're going to have a component called post table. So let's go into components, and I guess, you know what, let's create a folder in components called posts, just to kind of break it up so we don't have all the components in the ones that we create, we don't have them all in the root. So we'll create a file in here called post table.tsx, and let's do sfc post table, and for now we'll just have a div and say posts. Okay, now we're going to bring this into the dashboard. So let's go back to, let's see, app, and then page.tsx, and let's bring this in. So we'll import post table, and let's see, we're going to put this, where are we going to put this? After this div here. So post table, and now we should see right here posts. All right, so now let's go into post table, and we're going to be using the data table component from shadcn. So let's install that. We're going to say npx shadcn-ui at latest, and then I believe it's data-table. Let me just double check that. Let's see. So data table. Oh, it's just table. Okay. Okay, it's just table. So whoops, get rid of that and just say add table. Okay, that will get added to the UI. There we go, table TSX. And then let's bring in the stuff we need. So we're going to import from, and let's see, at /components/UI/table. And what we want to bring in is going to be table, and then table body, and table cell, table head, and what else? Table header, and table row. I think that's everything we need. And then in addition to that, we're going to import link. So link, and then we also want to bring in both our data and the post type. So let's say import posts from, we want to go at data/posts, and let's also import the type. So that's going to be post from types post. Okay, now the table is going to take in a couple props. It's going to take in a limit and a title. The title will be the header, the heading that displays. So let's go right here and let's create our interface for the props. So post table props, and we're going to say limit, and this is going to be optional, so we can put a question mark, and then that's going to be number, and we're also going to have a title optional, and that will be a string. Okay, so now in the props, we're going to pass in an object. We're going to destructure the limit and the title, and we're going to set that to the post table props. Okay, so now let's see. We need to get the data, but I don't want to use all of it. I don't want to use all 10 or however many are in there. I want to narrow it to 5 or to whatever the limit is passed in. But I think before we do that, we'll just have them all before we actually do the limit. So let's go into the return, and we are going to have a div, and let's give it a class. I want to move it down a little bit, so we're going to do margin top 10. And then inside the div, we'll have the h3, and let's give this a class name of text-3xl, or sorry, 2xl. And let's do margin bottom 4 and font dash semi-bold. Okay, and then I want to show the title, but only if it's there. So I'm going to say title. If it's there, then show title. Else, then just say posts. Okay, and we can save that and take a look. So it just says post because we didn't pass anything in. However, if I were to pass in title and set that to latest posts, then that displays. All right, cool. So now let's keep going here. We want to go under the H3, and that's where we're going to start our table. So we have a table. Oh, one thing I forgot is the table caption. We need to bring that in as well. So table caption, and that's going to be next. So table caption, and we're just going to put some text in here. I'll say a list of recent posts. And let's see, underneath the caption we'll have the table header, and that's going to have a table row, and in the table row we'll have table head, and say title. Copy that down a couple times. This one's going to be author, and this one is going to be date. Now I want this to be responsive, and tables are tough to make them responsive. So what we can do is just cut out some of the fields. If we're on smaller screens, then let's just show the title and the button, because we're going to have an edit button. So what we can do is add onto the author right here. Let's do class name. Oops. Class name, and what we can do is set it to hidden initially, but then on medium screen set it to table-cell. So that's what it'll display will be set to. All right, and then for the date, we're gonna kind of do the same thing. So let's say class name, and let's set it to hidden, and then MD table dash cell, and I'm also gonna align text right. All right, so there we go. Now when I make this smaller, you can see that only the title shows. Now this right here, a recent list, a list of recent posts. I couldn't figure out how to get this out of here without having to go into the file and actually change it. So if you go into the UI, components UI table, and let's see, it's down, it's like the caption, I think. Let's see. I think it's this, 103. If I comment that out, yeah, that gets rid of it if you don't want that. All right, so back to our table. That's the header. Now let's go under the header and let's do the table body. And in the table body, we're going to map through the posts. So let's say posts.map and pass in here. Set that to some parentheses, and we're going to say for each post, call it post, and then we want to have a table row. And since we're in a list, we have to add a key. So let's set the key of this to the post.id. And then in the row, let's have a table cell. Okay, so table cell, and that's going to be the title. So post.title, right? And then we'll copy that down. The next one is going to be the author, but remember, we're not showing this on small screens. So we also have to add what we did to the table header, or table head rather, add a class name of hidden, but on medium, we want table cell. I think that's right. Should be. Yeah, so there we go. We have title, author, but only the title on smaller screens. Now let's add the, what else is there? The date. So under that table cell, let's create another one. Actually, we could probably just copy this because it's going to have those classes. And I also want to just add text right. And then this is going to be post date. Okay, so that will show the date. Good. Now I want to have a link to the edit page as well. So why don't we add another head up here after the date. So table head. And let's just say view, or yeah, I guess we could say view. It's like the view / edit page. And then let's add another cell. And in here we're going to have our link. And href is going to go to, let's put some backticks in here because we want this to go to /posts /edit / and then the post ID. Okay, so that's our href, and then we want to wrap. We'll just use a button, and let's say edit, and we're going to give this a bunch of classes. So let's do a background blue 500, and on hover we'll do BG blue 700, and let's do text white, font bold, padding on the y-axis 2, padding on x 4, and rounded, and then we'll also make it extra small, so text XS. And there we go. So now we have our edit button. If I click it, it's going to bring us to post edit and then the ID, which obviously doesn't exist, but we will be creating this page. We'll have a form. I'm going to show you how we can set up a form using some components and using React hook form along with Zod for validation. Now before we move on, one thing I want to do is cut this down, because if we have 100 posts, they're all going to show here. So remember, it takes in a limit, and I want to use that. We haven't used that prop that's passed in. So let's pass it in. So right here we'll say limit, and we'll set that to 5. And then we want to implement that. So I'm going to go above the return, And let's first sort posts in descending order based on date, because I want the latest ones first. So we'll say const sorted post, and this is just vanilla JavaScript. So sorted post, or I should say TypeScript, because we're going to set it to a type of post array. And then set that to an array we'll spread across all the posts. And then we want to sort it, so we're going to use the sort method. And inside that, we'll pass in our function. And that function is going to take in our A and B. And then we just want to, you know what, let's not even use parentheses. I mean, not parentheses, curly braces. So we'll just do an implicit return. And we'll say new date. And let's pass in b.date. And we want to get the time, so d.get time, and then minus new date, pass in a.date, and then dot get time. That should give us the sorted posts, right? In fact, if we were to replace down here where we have posts, we can replace that with sorted posts, and now it should be the most recent first, which it is 520, 428. All right, so we know that that's working. Now we want to filter, let's say filter posts to limit. So const, and we'll call this filtered posts. And let's set that to, first we want to check the limit. So if there's a limit, then we're going to take our sorted posts and let's use slice. We could do this a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to do slice 0 to the limit. Else, then we just want to use sorted post if there's no limit passed in. And then down here, instead of sorted post, we're going to use filtered post. All right, so now we only have 5. All right, cool. So I want to finish the dashboard up. Then the last thing that I want to put here is the analytics charts. Now, as far as I know, shadcn-ui doesn't have any charts. I could be wrong, but I searched all the documentation, couldn't find anything. So we're going to use something called Recharts, which is pretty easy to implement. So let's install that. We'll come down here, npm, it's Recharts. Make sure you put the S on the end. And then why don't we create our data that we want to show in the chart? And I want to make this basically just the views, like the website or the platform views over the year for each month. So let's create the type first. So in types, we'll create analytics.ts. And let's see, we're going to add, get rid of that. We're going to add export an interface. We'll call this analytics item. And it's going to have a name, should be a string. It's going to have a UV, which is going to be a number. It's going to have a PV, which is going to be a number, and an AMT, which will be a number. It just comes from some, I don't know where I found it, some site that just gives you a bunch of data. And I believe this stands for unique views, page views, and amount, I'm pretty sure. So the data itself is going to go in the data folder, and we'll create analytics.ts. And then again, I'm just going to paste it in. Let's first import the types. So we want analytics or analytics item. And then I'll grab that data. Again, you can just copy it from the final repo. Okay, so we have const data set to an array of analytics item. And you can see we have the name, which is the month, and then the unique views, the page views, and the amount. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what that is. I didn't create this data, so let's save that. And now we want to implement recharts. So why don't we create, let's see, in components, this is going to be for the dashboard. So in the dashboard, I'm going to create a new file called analyticschart.tsx. And let's do sfc analytics chart. And for now, I'll just have a div. I'll just say chart, and let's bring it into the dashboard page, which is going to be app page.tsx. And let's bring that in right here. So import analytics chart, and I'm going to put this, I want to put this in between the dashboard cards and the post table. So I'm going to go right here and put this in. Okay, so it's going to show right in the middle. Now let's go into analytics chart, and as far as components, we're going to be using the card component, but we're going to bring in a bunch of stuff from Recharts as well. So let's go up to the top and let's do our imports. So we'll do import, and let's first do the Rechart import. So this is going to be from Recharts. All right, so the first thing I'm going to bring in, it's going to be a line chart. So let's bring in line chart and line. And then we want the x-axis and the y-axis. And we want the Cartesian grid, and then a responsive container, because we want to make this responsive. So those are the things we want to bring in from Recharts. Now let's import what we need from the card component. So this is going to be from @/component/UI card. And we want to bring in card content, card description, card header, and what else? Card title. And that's, yeah, we want to bring in the types as well for analytics. So let's say import data from data analytics. All right, so now we can do the output. Actually, one thing we have to do is make this a client component, because in order to use this chart, we have to add use client at the top. Okay, and then what we'll do is just have just a fragment, and then inside that, let's do the card, and then we'll have the card header, and inside that we'll have the card title, and for the title we'll say analytics for this year. Okay, underneath that we'll have the card description. I think it's card description, right? Yeah. And let's say views per month. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. And then let's see, we'll have the card content underneath. And in the card content, we're going to have a div with a little bit of inline style. This is what's recommended in the documentation for the responsive container. So we just want to add a width, and that width is going to be 100%, and then also height, which is going to be 300. All right, then within that div, we want the responsive container, and in the responsive container, we're going to have the line chart. Actually, yeah, and that line chart is going to take in a couple things. It's going to take a width, so this is basically like the max width. I'm going to do 1100, and then it takes in a height. Let's do 300, and then it takes in the data, which we have set to data. All right, and then within the line chart, we have our line, and the line is going to be self-closing and take in a couple things. So it takes a type, which I'm going to set to monotone, and it takes in the data key, which is going to be UV, and then stroke, which is going to be the color of the line. So that's going to be hexadecimal 888 4D8. All right, so there's our line. Now we don't see anything yet. We have to add the Cartesian grid. Oh, there's the line. Yeah, it is there. It has a little animation, which is pretty cool. Now you could leave it like that if you want, but I like the grid behind it. So let's, and it also doesn't show the data. That will be the X and Y axis. So let's do Cartesian grid, which is going to be self-closing, and then that takes in a stroke as well, which we're going to set to light gray. Okay, then underneath that we'll have our x-axis, and x-axis is going to take in a data key, which is going to be the name, and then underneath that we have the y-axis, which doesn't take in anything. So now you can see we have our grid, we have our x-axis, which has the names of the month, and then we have the y-axis, which has the views, the unique views. Yeah, so I think that looks pretty good. And then if I make this smaller, you'll see that it actually shrinks up, right? It's responsive. And it's not easy to make a chart like that responsive. So I think we're done with the dashboard. Yeah, we're done with the dashboard. So now we can move on to the post page. I want to be able to go to this post and basically have this table, right, with all of the posts, and then add the pagination component. So we're actually using quite a few components from shadcn-ui. So let's create the post page. So we can close this stuff up, and in the app folder, we'll create a folder. Now, actually, you know what? Before we create the post folder, what I want to do is create a category folder. I'm not sure exactly what these are called, but in Next.js, if you put a folder with parentheses around it, and I'll call this, let's call this main. Okay, so I can put a folder in here called posts, and then in there I can create a file called page.tsx, and this will be accessible, this page, by going to /post. I don't have to do /main post, because when you have parentheses, it's not an action, it's not a route, it's not counted in the route. It's just to organize your folders. All right, so in here let's do SFC, and let's do posts page, and for now I'll just have a div and just say posts. And now I should be able to click on the post link, and now I see the post page. All right, and then what we can do is actually have a separate layout per these category pages. And that's what we're going to do in a little bit, because the login page is going to have a different layout than the rest of the site, the main site. All right, so, but we'll do that after. We'll do the layout after. Let's now, on the post page, bring in the post table, which we've already created. So we're going to import post table, and then let's get rid of that. We can make this a fragment, and then let's say post table, and I'm not going to pass in a limit because I want to show all of them, and that's it. We've already done this. It's already there. The only other thing I want to do on this page is the pagination. So let's install the pagination component with npx shadcn-ui add, and then pagination. Okay, and actually before we implement that, let's add a back button, because I do want to have a button to go back here as well as in the edit page when we do that. So I'm going to have a separate component for the back button. So we can put that just right in the components folder. So in here, we'll create back button.tsx, and we're going to bring in an icon called arrow circle. I think it's or arrow left circle from Lucide React. And let's create an interface, because this is going to take in a couple of properties. So we'll call this back button props, and it's going to have text, which will be just the text that shows. That'll be a string, and then it's also going to have a link, and that'll be a string. All right, so now let's do SFC and back button for the props, text and link, and we want to map that to back button props. And then in the return, let's do, let's see, let's bring in link, and then we'll return link. Now the href is going to be the link prop, like that. And let's see, we're going to add a few classes to this as well. So let's say class name, and I'm going to do text dash gray dash 500, and then on hover I'm going to underline, and I'm going to use flexbox because we'll have the icon along with the text. So we'll item center, and let's add a gap of 1 and font bold and margin bottom 5. And then in the link, we're going to have our arrow left circle icon. Let's give it a size. So size, I'm going to do 18. And then after that, we'll have the text. All right, so that looks good. Now let's add that to the post page, right? So here, let's bring in import back button, and we're going to put it right above the post table, back button, and for the text, we're going to set that to go back, and for the link, in this case, it's going to go back to the home page. Okay, so now we have a go back button. Now we'll add the pagination. So we're going to add in the, let's see, let's go into components and then posts, and we'll add posts pagination.tsx, and let's say SFC posts pagination. For now, we'll just have a div, and let's bring that into the page. So let's see, import post pagination, and where do we want to put this? Just right below the table. Okay, so you should see just right here, pagination, and then we're going to bring in the shadcn stuff. We can probably just copy that from the docs. So if we go over here to pagination, yeah, so we just want something like this. So usage, let's copy the imports. So imports, and I'm just going to grab this. And let's see, we'll just return that. So if we save it and take a look, okay, so there we go. We probably want a couple other. Now this isn't going to work. We're not going to be able to use this because, I mean, we're not doing the back end. It's just the interface. But if we can add some more items, like we can copy this down, and we can have 2, 3, and there we go. So very easy to implement this stuff. Now for the edit form, these links here, they go to, if I click it, it goes to post, edit, and then the ID. So what we want to do is go into our app main posts, and then inside that we'll have a folder called edit, and then inside that we'll have a folder with brackets and ID, and inside that we'll have a page.js tsx. Let me just make sure I use tsx in all these. Yeah. All right, so this is going to be our edit page. So let's say SFC post or post edit page, and then for now we'll just have a div and edit. Okay, so you can see that now that's working if we go to edit and then an ID. And we're going to use our back button here as well, so let's bring that in. So import back button, and let's see, we'll make this a fragment and put the back button here, and I'm going to pass in the text, which is going to be back to posts, and then the link is going to be /posts. All right, so now we can click on any of these. We can go back easily. Now, the form here, this is going to be probably the most in-depth part of this, because we're going to be using React hook form and Zod for validation. And there's three components from shadcn that we need to install. That's form, input, and text area. So why don't we do that? Let's come down here and let's say add shadcn-ui at latest, add form. Okay, so that's the first one. Then we're going to do input, and then we're going to do text area. Okay, so now we have those installed. Now I'm going to just close up everything else. And I mean, you could put the form in a separate component, but I'm just going to put it just right in the page. If you guys want to change that up, you can. So let's bring in everything we need. Now we're going to be using Zod, so we want to say import all as Z from Zod. And we want to use a hook called useForm. And this has to be a client component, so we'll do that in a second. But we want to bring in useForm, and that's from React hook form. All right, let's go up here and let's add useClient. Okay, so in addition to that, we're going to import the Zod resolver. That's going to help us with our validation. So let's say Zod resolver, and that's from hook form resolver Zod. Then we're going to import the stuff that we need from the form component, which is going to be @/components/form, or components UI/form. And the things we want to bring in are going to be form control, form field, form item, and then we want form label. And finally, we want form message. So this will have validation, and it will show a message if something's wrong. All right, so that's that. Now we also want to import a couple other things. We want the back button. Wait, I already brought that in, didn't I? Yeah. But we want the input. So input, that's going to be from components UI input. Then we want text area. So text area and text area, and then we also want button. We installed that. I think that was the first one we installed. And in our data, so import posts from data posts. Okay, because we're going to target the whatever ID we're on, we're going to target that post and fill the form with that data. Okay, now to use Zod, we need to create a form, what's called a form schema, which will have all of our fields and the types and any rules to those fields. So we're going to go in the, actually we're not going to go in the function, we're going to go right here and define form schema and set that equal to z.object. Okay, and then in that object we'll have an object, and let's say title. We want to set that to z.string because that's going to be a string, and then we can do any rules we want. Now I want these to be required, and you used to be able to do what was it, with, no, shit, I forget what the required one was, but it's deprecated. So now I guess you just do min, and we can say minimum of 1 character. Then we can have an object after that and add a message, and we can say like title is required. All right, then let's just copy this down. We want 4 total. Second one is going to be the body, and that's going to be a string, minimum 1, and let's say body is required. This one is going to be the author, and we'll say author is required. And this one is going to be the date, and we'll say date is required. All right, so that's our form schema. Now, the post edit page, we need to get the ID, right? We need this from the URL, and that comes in through a prop of params. So let's add our TypeScript interface. Let's say post edit page props, and we're going to have params, which is going to be an object, and it's going to have an ID that's a string. Okay, and then let's map this this object to post edit page props. All right, next we want to get the post, which is pretty simple. We have the ID, we have the post, the data coming in. So let's create a variable called post, and let's say posts.find, and we'll pass in our function and say for all posts, we want to call that post, and we want to return where the post.id is equal to the params.id, and that should give us the correct post. All right, let's just save this, make sure we have nothing going on here, and we can just do a console log of the post, make sure that we're getting that. All right, so yep, we're getting that. This is on my machine because of just some extensions I have. You probably won't have this warning or this error. All right, so we got our console log, we got our post. Now we need to use the useForm hook. So we're going to say form equals useForm. All right, and we can add on here. I guess the type we use here is z.infer, so we can say z.infer and then open another set of brackets, and in here we want type of and then form schema. And then inside here we want to pass an object with a resolver, and that resolver is going to be the Zod resolver that we brought in, and it's going to take in the form schema. Okay, so that's how we can attach the schema to this form. And then we can provide default values. And since this is an edit form, we want the default values to be the data of the post. So for instance, we're going to say title, we'll say post, and just to prevent any errors, I'm going to make this optional and then say dot, oops, did I do dot title or nothing. And we'll copy that down a few times. Then we're going to say body. It's going to be post.body. Then we got, what am I doing? Body author. Author and date. All right. So that'll put the data in. Now we have to create the form. So let's come down here into the output, and we'll have a heading. We'll do H3 text 2XL, and let's say margin bottom 4, and edit post. And then under that, we're going to have our form component, so uppercase F form, and then that actually takes in an object, and we spread the form like that. And then we have the actual form tag, so lowercase r, and that's going to have an onSubmit. Okay, that onSubmit is going to be form.handleSubmit, And that takes in a function which we're going to create above, and we'll call that handle submit. And I just want to give this form a class. Let's say class name, and just to space things out, we'll do space dash y dash 8. Why is that giving me? Why is it giving me an error? Oh, we have to create that. So const handle submit. And all I'm going to do, this handle submit will take in the data, right? So data, and we're going to do z.infer and type of form schema. And for now, let's just do a console log. I don't know why that's not working. So console log of the data, I guess. Now there's quite a bit that goes into a form field, so I want to see if we can copy that from here. So if we look at form, so let's see, example, yeah, so we have the form field, then we have control, and then we have the render. So render is a function. That's where we put the form item with the label, control, and then the input. Yeah, so let's copy this. Actually, we don't want the use form. We've already done that. Let's copy just this form field. And then we'll put our first form field right here. So we want to change, let's see. We want to change, it's not going to be username, it's going to be title. And then let's change this to title. And what else? Form label, form control input. Actually, form label, we're going to add a couple classes to. So let's say class name, and we're going to do uppercase, text, extra small, font bold, text dash zinc dash 500, and then on dark themes, we're going to do text dash secondary slash 70, and yeah, that should. Form description is not defined. Oh, you know what? We're not even using a form description, so we can get rid of that. I just want to make this. Okay, so it's showing the title of this post, which is good. The input, though, we want to change some of this stuff up. So the placeholder, or we want this to say enter title if there's no, if there's no value. And then we want to add some classes to this as well. So let's say class name, and we're going to do bg-slate-100. And let's do border -0 on focus, actually focus visible. We're going to set ring-0 text-black, and also focus-visible. We're going to do ring offset -0. Yeah, so we just kind of made that a little darker. All right. Actually, you know what? I want to change that for the dark mode. I think I added that somewhere. Let me just give me a second. Just want to make sure, because when I added the dark mode, there were a few things I had to change. Yeah, so on the label, I want to add, I don't want to do this secondary actually. We're going to do text white for the label. And then also text white for the input on dark. So we have text black, but then let's say dark text dash white. And I think, yeah, I think that's what I want to do. actually on dark for the background too. So BG slate 100, but on dark, then let's do BG dash slate dash 500. All right, cool. So I think that that's it. Now the form message is where the error will display if we don't add anything and we submit it, if there's nothing in the field, if it's empty. So let's copy the form field now, which ends right here. And the next one is going to be the body. So right here, let's paste that in. Now the body is going to be a text area, so we want to change this input here to a text area. And we want to change this, or this name, the label, and then down here in the placeholder, we're going to change those to body. Okay, and make sure you keep the casing. I have an extension installed that I really like. That's so simple, but it's really helpful. So it's what is it? This right here, I think. No, that's not it. What is it called? Damn it, I forget what it's called. It's like keep case or something like that. I want to show you guys. This one, multiple cursor case preserve. So when you select multiple instances of text and they're different cases, it preserves it. Like here, the lowercase e and the uppercase e, it keeps them rather than just change it to whatever you type. So it's a great extension and something so simple but so helpful. All right, so that's the body. I don't know if there's anything else I want to put here. Let's save it. Yeah, I think that looks good. And then let's paste in another form field under that. That's going to be the author, so we'll change this, this, and this to author. And save that. There we go. Now we want the date. So go under that form item, paste that in, change this, this, and this to date. And there we go. Now we just need our button. So under that form field, which ends right here, we're going to have our button. Whoops, it should be uppercase. It's a component. So button, we'll say update post. And we're going to add a couple things to this button, or a couple classes. So let's say width dash full. Let's do on dark. I want this to have a background of slate 800, and on dark I want the text to be white. And there we go. So that's our form. Now if we submit, we should just see the data in the console. Okay, there it is. And what's cool is we have our validation. So if I were to forget the title, there we go. It already says title is required, body is required. So that's it. And I really like React hook form. So I think when I redo my React course, I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to use is React hook form and Zod. Now, I mean, like I said, we're not submitting to a database or anything like that. At least in this video, I might add to it later on, but I want to show you another component, and that's the toast component. So I want to just be able to, when we submit this, it'll have a little toast pop up and say that it's been submitted successfully. So for that, let's go back to the docs and let's see, go down to toast, and it'll look like this. And you can even have like a little undo button. So we want to install it with this command. And you have to add this toaster in your layout, right? Because it's the output for that toast. And then there's a hook called useToast that we can bring into our component. So let's do those three things. We're going to install it, right? So, whoops, what the hell? I don't know what I just did. We'll just say add toast. And then let's go into the layout, the root layout, which is right here. And we're going to bring in that toaster. So import toaster from, and that's going to be from components /UI/toast. think. Is that not right? Toaster from Toaster. Now I don't have to install both of those, right? I think if we look in Components UI, should have, yeah, we have Toast and Toaster. All right, so we just need to change this to Toaster, and then we can put this, we'll just put it right above the body, so Toaster. So that's just the wrapper for the actual toast. Now to make the toast pop up, we're going to go back to our page, and let's bring in the hook. So up here, let's say import use toast from Components UI, and it should be just /toast like that. Oh no, it's actually use toast. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it is use toast. All right. Okay, then we have to initialize it just like you do with, many other hooks. So we'll go at the top of the function here. Let's say const toast use toast. And then down in our submit, instead of the console log, let's do toast. And then we're going to pass in here an object with a title. And the title will just say post has been updated. Oops. Updated successfully. And then let's see, what else is there? You can put a description. And actually, let's do backticks here, because I'm going to say updated by, and then we'll put post question mark dot author on, and then post question mark dot date. All right, so let's try that out. We'll go to the edit form. I'm just going to reload and then update. And down here, post has been updated successfully, updated by James Taylor on, and then the date. So we got quite a bit going on here. I mean, to add a backend and to add a database, or just to use Next.js and some kind of ORM like Prisma, and I've been using something called NeonDB lately, which I actually like more than MongoDB. That's something that I may add to this in a second part, but I want to just get the what I have planned done for this video, and the next thing I want is to be able to switch from light to dark mode and vice versa. So we're going to do that next, and we're going to use a package called Next Themes. So let's close this stuff up, and I just want to check out the documentation. So on the left here, if we go up to dark mode and then Next.js, so we want to install Next Themes, and then we create a theme provider, and we have the code for that right here, and then we wrap our application with the theme provider. Then we can add a toggle button. So let's do that. Let's install Next Themes. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the terminal here. Let's say npm install next-themes. And then we're going to create a provider. So it's a component. So in components, what I'll do is create a folder called providers. And then in that, we'll create a file called theme provider.tsx. And then I'm going to grab this right here, and we'll paste that in. Okay, and we actually don't need this line. Now this theme provider has to wrap in our layout, okay, just like it does here. So let's go to the layout.tsx, and let's see, we want to bring that theme provider in. So up at the top here, let's import the theme provider, and then we're going to wrap, let's see, we're going to wrap everything that's in the body. So right here, let's open it up, theme provider, and then the ending tag is going to go down here right above the ending, right above the body tag, the ending tag. Now that theme provider is going to take a few props in. It's going to take an attribute, of class, and then you can set a default theme. And I'm going to choose light for the default. And then we're going to add this enable system, so whether to switch between dark and light themes based on prefers color scheme. So basically you can use what your operating system uses. So we'll set that. I'm actually going to set that to false. And then we have to add a storage key, and I believe this can be anything. So we'll say dashboard dash theme, and that should do it. So that adds the provider. Now we need the actual toggler. So let's see, I don't know if I want to copy this or... Yeah, I guess we could copy this and then just edit it to what we need. So let's grab that. And then what we'll do is create a new component. And in the components folder, I'm going to create a file called theme toggler.tsx. And then I'm going to paste that in. All right, so let's see. We're bringing in the moon and sun icon from Lucide React. We're using the useTheme hook. So this is a client-based component. We're bringing in the drop-down menu, which we already have installed. And let's see. We have the sun icon here. And I'm going to want to just change a few things around as far as the classes, because it's not going to look very good the way it is with the color of the navbar and stuff. So let's edit some of this. The button, let's see, variant outline size icon, that's fine. Actually, I'm going to set size to null, otherwise it's too big. And then we're going to add some classes to this as well. So let's do bg-slate700, and then on hover, let's do bg-slate, and we'll do 600. Well, we'll try this out. I'm not sure if this is this is exactly what I want. Border, we're going to say 0. And then I'm going to do margin right 5, because we're going to put it right here. So I want some space in between it. So margin right 5, and then just some padding, so P2. All right, now let's bring it into the navbar, because that's where I want to put it. If you want to put it somewhere else, you can. But I'm going to go to the navbar, and then up at the top here, we're going to import the theme, what was it, theme toggler? Why is it not showing up? What did I call it? Oh, I copied this. So mode toggle, I'm going to change it to theme toggler, and I want to export it as default. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then down at the bottom, export default, just preference, theme toggler. All right, so now in the navbar, let's bring that in. So import theme toggler from components / theme toggler. All right, now let's figure out where we want to put this. So we have, what do we have here? We have a flex div, right? And then we have the logo, and then the avatar and drop down. So I want the theme to be next to the avatar and drop down. So why don't we wrap a div around this avatar and drop down and make it a flex box. So we'll do flex and then items dash center, and let's put the theme toggler here as the first flex item, and then the drop down with the avatar is the second. So we're going to just grab this, cut it, and put that right under the theme toggler. Okay, so now we can see that, and let's click dark, and there we go. So we have our dark mode. If we go to the post page, okay, that looks decent. Form looks decent. Cool. And I actually do want to set in the layout, where's the layout? I actually do want to set enable system to true, because we should be able to click system, and whatever your operating system is set to, it should be, which mine is dark. So like if I go to light and then I go to system, it should turn to dark. All right, so that's the dark mode. Now, the last thing that I want to do is create a login page. And again, we're not using an authentication system here. We're not, well, at least in this video. But I do want to have the page. So basically, when we click log out, it takes us to /auth. And what I'd like to have here, if we go to the docs, I'd like to have some tabs, or the tabs component. And it has a cool example here with account and password, but what I want to do is have a register for this one, the register form, and create account. You see that a lot. So I think that's a good case. This component is a good case for that. So what we'll have to do, though, is use a separate layout. Now, in these category folders with the parentheses, you can create separate layouts. You have your root layout, but then you can have basically like sub layouts. So why don't we create a new folder, not in main, but in app, and let's say parentheses auth, and then anything to do with auth will go in here, and this will have its own layout. So let's say layout.tsx, and then we'll create the auth layout. So we'll say const, actually let's just do sfc, and I'm going to call this auth layout, and it's going to take in children, and we're going to set that to an object with children, and that's going to be set to react.react node. Okay, and then in the return, basically I just want a div. I don't want to have the sidebar or the navbar or anything like that. I just want a box in the middle with those tabs in the forms. So let's have a div, and let's add some classes to this. So I'm going to do height dash, and then in brackets 100 VH. I'm going to display as flex. I'm going to align items to the center and justify to the center. And then I'm going to make this relative as well. All right, and then inside that div, we're going to have the children. Okay. Now, when I put something in here, it should use this layout. So if I were to put a new page, or not a page, but a folder called auth, and then in that, a page called page.tsx, because I want it to be this right here, /auth. And even though it's in the parentheses auth folder, that's a category folder, so that doesn't count as the route. So it should just be /auth and then this page. So let's do sfc. And let's call this, what should we call this? Auth page. And for now, just have a div and just say auth. And that should show here now. And see how it's in the middle? Because it's using this layout with the, everything is to the center. Now the problem is it's also using the root layout, because the root layout wraps these sub layouts. So what I'm going to do is in the main folder, let's move the home page into that. Okay, we're going to move that into that. We can say no for the imports, because it's not, the different imports aren't going to be any different because it's in a parentheses folder. All right, so we have the home page in there. Now let's create a new file in main, parentheses main, called layout.tsx. And I'll just copy the auth layout, paste that in, and we're just going to rename this to main layout. And then this is where I actually want to have the navbar and stuff. So we don't want these classes. In fact, we'll just use a fragment. And then from the root layout, let's grab, let's see, with the theme provider, that can stay, the toaster can stay. I just want to get from the navbar to this div. And we're going to cut that and then just put children here so that the root layout doesn't use the navbar and sidebar. So now auth, you can see, is just put in the middle. If I go to the home page, we're getting an error because I have the layout in there, right? So in main layout, we need to finish this. So I'm going to paste in what I just copied, and of course we have to bring in the Navbar and the Sidebar. Let's save that. And now we're back to having the Sidebar and Navbar on anything that's in that main folder, which is this, which is the posts, which is the edit. However, if we go log out, we go to auth, it's not using that. All right, so I hope that makes sense and isn't too confusing. This is the root layout. This wraps everything, okay? The theme provider, the toaster, that's going to be whether you're on auth or whether you're in the main stuff, right? But if you're on the main stuff, then you have this sub layout which has the navbar and sidebar. If you're in the auth layout, then you don't have that. You just have this div that centers everything. Okay, now in the root layout, we no longer need to bring in the navbar and sidebar, so we can get rid of that. And now we can continue to work on the auth. So we have the layouts all set. So let's close all this, and then I just want to open up the auth page. And everything we're going to have is going to be within a component now, including the tabs. We'll have an auth tabs component, and we'll have a login page or login form component and register form component. But all I want to render in the auth page is the auth tabs component, which we didn't create yet, but I'm just going to bring in. So it's going to be called auth tabs from @/components/ and we'll have a folder called, not dashboard, auth in components, and this will be called auth tabs, which doesn't exist yet, but we'll create it in a second. And then all I want to have here is auth tabs. Okay, so that's going to give us an error because that doesn't exist. So let's go into components, and let's see, we're going to create in components a folder called auth, and then let's create a file called auth tabs.tsx. Now we're going to be using the tabs component, which I don't think we didn't install that, right? No, we didn't install that. So let's install it. So shadcn-ui at latest add tabs. And then we should be able to get it from the docs. So let's go to tabs, and yeah, right here. So I just want to copy this. We'll just type in the imports. Okay, so in auth tabs, let's import tabs and tabs content. And let's see what else. Tabs list and tabs trigger. So that's going to be from @/components UI and tabs. Okay, and then I'm going to paste in what I just copied. Actually, no, that's what we want for the return. Let's go ahead and create the actual function. Call it auth tabs. And in the return, I'm going to paste that in. And let's just see what that looks like. All right, so that's what it looks like. And we're going to just change up, let's see. Why is it so thin? With 400 pixels. Oh, you know what? We're going to add a couple classes to the tab list. So let's add class name, and we're going to use the grid class, and then width-full, and then grid-calls-2. See what that looks like. There we go. All right, so now basically what we want to do is have in the content, we'll have the login form component, and then in this content we'll have the register form. All right, but let's change the value here from account, actually default value, this, we can change to login. Okay, and then for this password, I'm going to just Command-Control-D, that, we're going to change to register. And for now, we'll just put login here, and then for the content here, we'll just put register. And ultimately, those will be forms. But now you can see we have login and register. So now we want to make these into forms. So let's create a couple new components. So in the components auth, I'm going to create a new file called loginform.tsx. And we might as well create register form.tsx. All right, so in login form, let's go ahead and generate a component. We'll call it login form. And for now, just a div. That, and then I'll just copy this and register form, same thing. We'll just change this. And now let's bring it into auth tabs, both of them. So import login form and import register form, and then we can just replace this text here with the login form component, and we can replace this text with the register form component. All right, so we should just see the text, login form, and register form. So let's start with the login form, and we're going to do the same thing. I mean, you could just throw in a couple inputs, but I want to have Zod set up and have the validation and so on. So I think what we could do is probably just copy from the edit post form, because it's going to be similar, just different, obviously different fields. So let's see, we'll go into app and then main post edit ID and then page, and I'm just going to grab the entire thing. All right, then we'll go to the login form. We can close up this stuff. Login form, I'm actually just going to paste this in, and let's change the name of the component. So here, actually we'll change everywhere where it says post edit page. Let's change that to login form. All right, and then we'll just start at the top here. So we need all this stuff: React hook form, Zod resolver. We're going to need this stuff. We're also going to need the card component. So let's go right here and let's import. And this is going to be from the card component. So it'll be @/components/UI/card. And the things we're going to need are card itself, card content, and card description. Oops, I don't want a space there. So card description, and what else? Card header, and card title. All right, so we get that. What's going on here? Cannot read properties ID. Yeah, so we'll get some errors right now, but we'll fix that up. Text area we don't need because it's a login form. And what else? Use toast. We're not going to use that. We're not going to need the post data. I think that's all we need. Actually, I do want to navigate once we log in. Well, air quotes log in, because we're not actually logging in. But to do that, we're going to bring in use router from Next navigation. Used to be router. All right, now for the schema, let's see. We're going to have an email, so we'll change those, and we can say min1 email is required. And then we can also, we want to make sure it's actually an email address. So let's chain on to that the email rule, and we'll pass in an object with a message and say, please enter a valid email. And then after email, we're going to have password. So let's change this to password, and those are the only two fields we need, so we can get rid of these other ones. All right, now we have our login form props we don't need because we're not actually passing any props. We can get rid of that, and then we can get rid of this here. We're not using the toast. We can get rid of that. We're not using posts. Okay, and then let's see, we're creating our form, excuse me, creating our form with the schema. Let's change that to email and change this to email. Then we have password, change this to password. Actually, no, this is not right. We just want this to be empty. So let's just set that, both of these to an empty string. And then we can get rid of these other ones. All right, so that should get rid of the errors. Yeah, those are old. Sometimes it takes a second to clear them up. Now the handle submit, we're not using toast, so we can get rid of that. We can get rid of, or no, we'll keep that, but let's just do a console, actually not a console log. This is where we're going to redirect. So let's take our router and let's, oh, we didn't initialize it. So when we bring in use router, we need to initialize it. So let's go right here within the function and say const router, set that to use router. All right, then we can say router.push, and I'm just going to redirect to the dashboard home. Let's see what else. I think that's good. Now for the output, we change a few things. We're not going to have a back button. In fact, let's get rid of that import as well. Oh, I already did. Okay. So we have this. You know what? I think what I'm going to do is just copy one form field and then just delete everything and type it in, because it's quite different because we're using cards. So yeah, let's get rid of that, and then we'll get rid of everything in here in this return. Okay, and then instead of fragments, let's just do not a crad, but a card. And then we'll have our card header. And in the card header, we'll have card title, and that will just say login. And then card description, and that's going to say log into your account with your credentials. All right, so underneath the card header will be the card content. And I'm just going to add a space class to that. So we'll do space on the y-axis 2, just split stuff up. And then we want our opening form component, and that takes in an object where we spread across form. All right, then we have our actual form tag, and we don't need an action, but we are going to add an onSubmit. Okay, so onSubmit handler, and we're going to set that to form.handleSubmit, just like we did with the other form, and then pass in our handleSubmit function, like that. Okay, and then let's see, within the form, actually let's also add a class on this. So class name, and let's do space -y-6. All right, now within the form is where we want our form field, which I'm going to paste in. That's what I copied. So this form field is going to have a name. So this and this we're going to change to login. And we're going to render a form item just like we're doing here. And not login, email. So these should be email. Then we have our form label, which, yeah, I'm going to change this stuff up a little bit. Actually, TextZinc 500. No, that's good. We'll keep that. And then we have our input. So, of course, the placeholder, we're going to change that to enter email. And then as far as the styling goes, I think we can just keep, yeah, we can just keep what we have there. All right, so I'm going to save it as it is now. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So now we need our password. So what I'm going to do is copy this form item again, or form field rather. And then let's paste it here. And let's change this and this and this to password. And we want to give the input a type of password as well. Okay, and then I think that's good. Save it. Okay, now we just need our button. So let's put that under, let's see, we're going to go under where the form field ends, and let's add button, uppercase B. Oops. And for the text, we'll say sign in. And then I just want to make it full width, so let's add a class name of w-full. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. So if we were to log in, and you can see my validation's working, right? Now if I put stuff in here that's allowed and sign in, it's going to redirect to the dashboard. All right, so let's go back and let's do the register form, which is going to be very, very similar. So I'm just going to copy everything from the login form, paste it in here, and then let's change the name. So here, and then at the bottom, change that to register form. All right, and then there's just a few things we need to add, because I also want a name field and I want the confirm password field. So let's go to the schema, which is right here, and above email, I'm going to add name, and we're going to set that to z.string, and let's do a min of 1, and then a message, and we'll say name is required, and I think that should do it. Let's put a comma there. And then we want the confirm password, so I'm just going to copy this and then change this to confirm password, and we'll say confirm password is required. I'm not going to do the like matching the passwords. And then here, default values, we can just add in name, confirm password. Whoops. Okay, and then handle submit, same thing. I'm just going to redirect. Then we want down here, let's change this to register. Let's change, what else? The text. We'll say sign up by adding the info below. Then we have our form field. I'm going to copy the form field. That's the email. I want to go above that and put the name as the first one. Okay, so let's change up this and this and the placeholder to name. Okay, I'm going to save that and we'll take a look. So register. All right, so we get name, email, password, and then we'll just add a confirm password. I'm going to copy this. And let's just change this to, let's say, confirm password. I want a space here and here. All right, take a look. There we go. Cool. So I think that's a pretty good looking authentication form. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to have the theme toggler here as well, because right now there's no way to change it. And what I want to do is position it absolute down here in the corner. So we'll put it in the auth layout. Now the theme provider is already, it's in the root layout, right? We kept that in the root right here. So we don't have to re-add that in the auth layout because this wraps all the sub layouts. So let's close these up and then let's go to app auth and then the layout TSX, and we're going to bring in the theme toggler component. So let's say import theme toggler, And then, let's see, we get flex, justify, and I use relative here because we're going to position the theme toggler absolute. So inside here, right above children, let's do a class of absolute. And then I'm going to do bottom dash 5 and right dash 0. And then in there, we can put the theme toggler, save it. Let's see, why is that color? Let's make sure it works first. All right, so that's the dark. I don't know why that color is not white. Because if I go to the home page, I believe it is, right? It's got to be the nav styles. All right, no problem. Let's just add to this text dash white. Okay, there we go. Dark. Cool. Now this will persist, right? I have it on dark mode right now, and then if I were to fake log in here, sign in, then it's still going to be dark. If I change it to light and then I go to log out, it's going to be light. So it's going to persist across different pages and different layouts. All right, guys, so I think that's it. As far as what we're going to do in this video, I may take it a step further and implement maybe NeonDB and Prisma later on, but I think that's where we're gonna stop for this. So thanks for watching. If you guys followed all the way through, congratulations. Not too many people do that these days because attention spans are just deteriorating. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.